on server 1 and server 2 and on Windows 7. Windows 7. So yes, can you listen me or I should listen you? You tell me. I think I should listen you, right? So you tell me what should I do, or should tell you what we need to do. Okay.
Excuse me,
Okay,
ma'am.
I'll address those things at the end, please. I have I'll check the text box, chat box, right?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am. Someone is in waiting room.
Okay, shall I teach you or not? You tell me. I think guys don't want me to teach you. I'll end this meeting then. I just 1 minute is required to end this meeting. Shall I teach you or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I have told you I addressed the individual question at the end, but you keep pushing me hard that I should address it first before I teach anything else. This attitude is not acceptable. So you guys tell me the story, your story. Everybody tell me your story. And then if we left some time, then I'll teach you something. This is what you want, right? Well, I can waste the time easily, but why you are insisting me to waste time? You guys are insisting me to waste time, right? So are you following my instruction or shall I follow yours? You tell me. Well, I need when your input, I ask you. I ask your feedback, but not all the time. We have some reserved time. I told you at the end, I will address your individual questions, but you keep pushing me that I should address this first. Well, you need to be honest with your submission, right? And you need to read my feedback carefully. If you cannot accept my feedback, I cannot help you further. You deny my feedback, then I cannot help you further. Well, there was one common mistake with most of the people. They didn't do the last step. So they got some less marks, not too less. Well, I think I'm going to end this session. I cannot teach you guys.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Well, what do you mean? But something is wrong, I shouldn't reduce marks, right? You didn't do something correct. You didn't perform some step. So I should all the time give you, okay, this is correct. This is not possible. Sometimes I ignore mistakes, but not all the time. If you need a favor, you should request it. What I feel, you guys don't request. You say, no, this is not wrong. Well, it means you are not here to learn. Are you the subject expert? What kind of experience you have it? I don't give the feedback now because you don't accept it. There are some norms, some etiquettes to attend the class. So you should listen me. I told you that I'm going to address individual questions at the end, but you're not listening me. You're pushing me hard that I should listen you first. I should whatever the story you have. The feedback, unfortunately, you don't accept. So I shouldn't waste my time to grade you, right? Either I give you 100% or 0%. This is what you want, right? Why should I waste my 3-4 hours to check your all contents? It's not something I'm making out of it, right? I'm wasting my time then. So you guys decide what should we do. Okay? Well, why should I give you my feedback? You said I didn't give you the feedback because you don't care about it, right? Yes. What you like me to do?
Sorry, ma'am. Can continue with the lecture.
Yes, ma'am, we should continue.
Well, your feedback is important for me. I need your feedback.
Ma'am, your feedback is very much important for us to know our mistakes.
Well, I'm trying to help you guys, right? Sometimes I'm running out of the time, out of my concerns, but you don't care about those things. So you care about my feedback. That's helpful for you. That's important. You should know then otherwise you're gonna keep repeating it. If I don't tell you at the beginning, you're going to keep repeating it. And then it becomes meaningless if I tell you at the end. Okay, you guys tell me what should we do now? Because I'm just a little concerned about it. So the behavior I found right in the beginning, and it was not the first time, right? That's why I just want to resolve this problem. So you need to have some patience when I say I'm going to look at it at the end. So you have to have some patience then. But what should we do? You tell me. I should address first all of your concern first and then teach something, or you want me to first learn something, teach you something, and then look at your question at the end. This is I think the normal way to do that, right? Okay, shall we continue? Okay, everybody is quiet.
Yes,
Say
ma'am.
yes or no.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Please continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, what is the point actually? We were left with a little part unfinished. For lab 3, my intention was to complete that part, but before that, you need to have some concept about DNS server. Configuration of the server is not that difficult, so I'll walk you through the steps. If you follow along, you should be good. But the important thing is to understand what the domain name system is, right? DNS servers. So you have already installed the role of the DNS server at your server too, correct? But we didn't configure anything there. We just have installed, we did not make it available to other servers like server 1 and the client machine. So what is the DNS exactly? When you type, what we're going to discuss first, I'll introduce the DNS, domain name server, installation already done. So we'll do some configuration, the last step of lab 3, zone types in their use, and we configure the DNS server properties. And not to the dense, not to the detail level, because that's not the main part of the course. Just to give you a thought, how do we configure basic setting on DNS server. So let me give you the idea about DNS, domain name server. You know, every node internet, whether it is on internet or on a local area network, they are identified by a logical address, which is the IP address. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay, so what happened when you go to Microsoft.com? Well, you open the website www.microsoft.com. Well, Microsoft.com, that is basically has an IP address to reach there. So you can do in your command prompt, write down there a ping www.microsoft.com. It will show you the IP address, right? It will give you the IP address of the Microsoft.com website. Now let's understand exactly what does it mean to us, right? So when you write down a page address, you're going to set up your web page today, a basic website. How to do that, I'll tell you hopefully today. So you enter this name into the browser, and as you enter this name, a web page appears, but it happens so fast that you even didn't realize that DNS query is sent to your local server. DNS query says, hey, someone want to reach to Microsoft.com. Can you give me the IP address of this website? Because you can reach to the website by their IP address. So DNS basically resolves the domain name, service name, domain name. This is the domain name. Microsoft is the domain name, right? So it resolves the domain name to IP address. This is the job of the DNS server, right? So so when you write down Microsoft.com or any other website, so it basically sends a query to the local DNS server, which is the nearest to you, which can be reachable by you, right? So it sends a query, says, okay, someone is want to reach to the Microsoft. What is the IP address? So query works in its way up the hierarchy of the DNS server. So it returns an IP server address, for instance, 65.55 dot 21 to 50. So that is not that's basically a public IP address. So the return IP address, to complete this connection, it must use an resolution protocol (ARP) to locate the hardware or the MAC address. MAC address, if you get to, let me stop this share for a second because I need to disconnect this PowerPoint for a second. 1 second, please. Uh, so if I go to my CMD, okay, so bless you. Here you can see some information about it, right? So the IP address. What else you can see here? I want you to notice this one, right? So what is this? Do you have you ever noticed this kind of information? Physical address, age, 6 DA, something like this. So check it out at your site and see what the physical address is. That is what we call um, MAC address, media access control address, which is basically the address of your network interface card, right? So every machine on the network has a NIC card installed on it, and the manufacturer provide a MAC address affiliated this NIC card. So NIC card is basically address of your NIC card is basically the physical address of your machine, right? So, but the outer world cannot reach you by a physical address. They need the IP address. So there is an ARP control, which ARP is another kind of protocol used inside the Windows, Microsoft Windows suite, a protocol. So which basically translate your MAC addresses into the IP addresses, right? So or IP, I would better say IP to MAC address resolution. So there's some resolutions performed from domain name to domain name to IP address. In IP, this is performed by DNS, right? In IP address to MAC address resolution is provided by performed by ARP. ARP is another protocol, just like a TCP. IP is a protocol which you use to configure your machine to communicate over the network and share the resources. So we are working to make our machine reachable over the network so other users can access the shares and share the resources. So DNS was developed as a hierarchical name resolution system that is distributed among servers located around the world. So domain name server, Microsoft, I'm using this example, Microsoft www dot Microsoft.com. So what this dot is, what this com means, and what this Microsoft and W is, right? Uh, so it has different levels. Domain. This is the those are the different levels of domain name server, right? So first level is root level domains. This is the root level domain. Dot is the root level domain, right? So the dot is the period, which is the top of the hierarchy. It's called the root domain. That's the root domain. This dot is the root domain, right? And the root node uses a null label and is specified by a dot, a period, connecting the top level domains, and it is not included in the domain name. So what is the top level domain? The top level domain is com. So that's a little history about when he was started working in 1980s. Maybe by that time, most of you were not born. So, addition two letters ISO standard country name like .com, .ca. That is the top level domains, top level domain, TLD. Sometimes it is abbreviated or referred as TLD. So root level domain is dot, and top level domain is com or AU or TR, or like in your country, you are in India, right? So what is the top level domain for your website? Like Amazon dot, Amazon, your local Amazon is a dot India, something like this. IN. What is the
.in,
top
ma'am.
level?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh?
.in.
.in. So this is .in is basically countries have their top level domain. Some many countries have their top level domain. Like .com is commercial, .ca for Canadian website, right? So yes, yes. Um, Okay. So so in addition to, so those are the two levels of the domain. So second level of domain name is under the top level domain are additional grouping referred to as a second level domain. For example, if there is a website pearson.com or microsoft.com, so Pearson is or Microsoft is basically the second level domain, right? So Microsoft is a second level domain, right? This is root, this is TLD, and that is the second level domain, right? So the second level domains can be further subdivided into subdomains like accounting.microsoft.com or accounting.pearson.com. In turn, these subdomains can further be subdivided up to the limit of 7 levels we have. So there is another thing we need to consider, like host name. Like you guys have your host name for virtual machines. You have assigned not only to the virtual machine, but you have also assigned to your server computer name. Like you said that my student ID, something like this, right? So student ID in your server one, and then you say student ID, and then your server two, and then you say student ID, and then your first few letters of your name or whatever, and your client name, right? So this is what we call the host name. So when you're going to make your domain name for this course, cst110.com, right? Let's suppose we're going to set it up, right? So what I can suggest you, this is what I'm going to use, and you guys can use your domain name of student ID. If you like to include first three letters of your name, or if possible, if not too big for to address, then you can write down the first three letters of your name, .com, right? This is going to be, let's suppose, your domain name, right? So under this domain name, if you someone want to reach to your computer, server one or server two, then it will be is going to be server two, for instance, dot student ID, uh, first name .com, right? In my case, if I'm going for the sake of simplicity, I'm using this one. My server name is Bizarra, for instance, Bizarra1 or Bizarra server 1 or server 2. So server 1, we're going to reach dot cst 110.com, right? So this is how it can be reachable. This is a host name, and this whole name, if I'm going to write down once I set up my domain name server, configure domain name server to this name, then this is going to be the fully qualified domain name, FQDN, right? So fully qualified domain name under the domain, what we're going to set up, like cst110.com. Makes sense? Uh, have question up to here? Well, when I'm saying question up to here, it means related to the contents, right? Not related to attendance and etc., right? So those things, please remember from now. If you have some personal questions, you're very welcome to ask. You can type in your personal questions in the text box, and I'll address it at the end. Last 15 minutes we will address to will reserve it to address your questions, whatever the individual questions. Most often I have a questions concern about attendance. So attendance is all about your response. If you cannot verbally respond, try to respond by chat box. Okay, that's simple. So host name is server name or whatever name you have assigned, right? Uh, are you following up to here? Hopefully. So this steps has been performed. How can you install your DNS role on server machine? So you can. What is the use of DNS name? If you reach ping to server 2, for instance you are at server 1, for instance you are at server 1 and you want to ping your server 2, so instead of typing your the IP address of the server 2, right? Because you're working in a local area, local setup, right? So you, but someone who is outside the system, how they can reach to you? They can reach to you by their by your fully qualified domain name or by the organization name. Like our organization name, for instance, is cst110.com, right? So you can basically ping by the server name or the host name, right? Ping by host name, or ping by fully qualified name, or ping by domain name, right? Domain name means www.xyz.com or whatever, right? So this is when you write down the names instead of IP addresses, then DNS will take care of it, right? So DNS will transfer or translate the host names or domain names into its corresponding IP addresses. So installation, I think DNS we all done up to here in our previous lab setting of lab 2.
Yes, ma'am.
So you add the roles and features using the add roles and features of your server manager, and you had selected this role, and then you follow along the on-screen instructions by going next until the time it was installed, and you restarted your machine. Now we need to do this little configuration today. Zone type and their uses. Zone is basically DNS has some zone division. Zone means what is the forward lookup zone? So, well, there are so many computers on this internet, millions of trillions of computers, right? So, well, one DNS is not sufficient to keep the track of all domain name to IP addresses resolution. So, domain name basically, when the query is generated, is sent to the local domain server, and local domain server check its forward lookup zone. If it finds uh, uh, the resolution, it returns the query with the IP addresses. If it didn't find the resolution, then it forward the query to next DNS server. So forward lookup zone basically, uh, there are three different main type of the zones are primary, secondary, stub, and active directory integrated zones. So you can have forward and reverse lookup zone in each of these zone type. So a forward lookup zone resolve a computer fully qualified FQDN. So you understand what is the FQDN? Your host name, right? Your host name and dot your domain name, right? .ca or .com, right? Root level in TLD. And this is okay. So the primary zone is a master copy of the zone data hosted on the DNS server. That is the primary source of the information for the record found in this zone. So server is considered to be authoritative for this zone, and you can update the zone data directly on this server. It is known as a master server. So primary zone is basically the master copy of zone data. What is zone data is like the list of DNS to query or domain name to IP addresses, right? So that is what we call them. It keeps a track of who is the nearest to and reachable to me, right? So secondary zone is an additional copy of DNS zone data hosted on the DNS server. That is the secondary zone for this zone information, and this server obtains the zone information from the server hosting the corresponding primary zone. It's an additional copy of the zone data, right? Or you can say it's a copy from the another DNS zone. Uh, so stub zone is contains the source information about authoritative name server for its zone only. So what we're going to configure, we're going to configure only primary zone for our DNS. Uh, just have a quick look on those tabs when you're configuring DNS server properties. So you go to the interface tab of the DNS server's property dialog box enables to the limit the interface on which the DNS server listen for the queries. So this configuration, we can go for default for this for our lab setup for learning purpose. So you can also configure the forwarder tab of the DNS server property dialog box, which enables you to specify the forwarder used by the current DNS server. So you provide the IP address of the forwarder, which is your main DNS server IP. And there are some advanced configuration. I think we can just go with the default. In the root hints tab of the DNS server property dialog box displays the name of the IP address and internet zones. So this is the IP address under the root hints, right? So like those are the server's name, right? What could be the corresponding IP address? That's the resolution performed by the DNS server. Okay. Um, Security tab enables you to modify user groups access to a DNS. Who can access the DNS server? You are the network admin. You are the king on your computer, boss of your computer. So network admin can do all the modification, or you can have some other users on the network who can access to the DNS server. So now configuring the common resource record, the DNS resource record in shown in the DNS zone. So you go to this web page, your web page, and then you do a little configuration here. I will show you the lab session how to do this configuration. In configuring the common resource record, the DNS resource record is a host A or AAAA record map. This is the standard default name of the host. Record maps on the FQDN of any computer host in the domain to its IP address. So normally the appropriate host record is dynamically added or updated when the host obtains IP configuration from DHCP. Okay, DHCP is another server role which can be installed, and it's responsible to assign IP addresses on the list. Someone asked me question last week. I remember when I was helping you to configure your IP addresses of the 3 machines. So one of you said that if we are doing the manual configuration, there might happens a conflict of the IP addresses. Yes, that's true, because you cannot just remember, but until and unless you know, you set up some strategy. One thing is, but this is a like when we need to configure 50 computers or 60 computer, definitely we don't do that manually, right? So we use the DHCP server then, which is responsible to assign the IP, automatically assign the IP addresses on the basis of lease, and they get the IP address on the lease for a day or for every day on the day-to-day basis. That's how the admin assign the lease period. And then most often the IP address remains same, but it assigned not for the on the permanent basis, but it's assigned on the lease. When lease is over, then a new assignment is done by the DHCP to the host machine. So an A resource record is used on the IPv6 network. So new alias or CNAME. Those are the terminologies which we use with the host record or DNS resource record. So canonical name or CNAME record are aliases for an existing host or AA record in the DNS zone. Canonical name record are useful if you need to create custom FQDN or user friendly names for a specific resource like your student id, your first name.com. It's longer for someone else to access your web page, maybe, right? So for other people's, maybe it is difficult, harder to remember. Then you can use a canonical name or user friendly names or aliases, a nickname you can say, refer to your web page or refer to your DNS page. So another thing, I think this is a background information about how do you set up the DNS and what is the function of the DNS. If you have question, you can ask at this point. Otherwise, we will go to the rest of the step of our uh, lab session. So I think everybody was done with this step of configuration. Um, so if you go to your DNS server, which is your server 2,
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
okay, you get to the server role. Um, Try to follow along the screen instruction if you can, please.
We have to do this on server 2.
Yes, please log into your server 2 and go to IIS server. So you go to the tools and select the IIS here. Okay, I'll be right back in a minute, okay? So there we're going to do a little configuration. Wait, can you open this page? Right? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes,
So are you
ma'am.
guys okay? Very good. So you are on that page, and now we're going to do a little configuration here. Not complicated, nothing. Just can you open this page in a notepad? On a notepad, right? So try to open it with a notepad. IIS start.
Ma'am, can you repeat the step?
So there's a document IIS start. So right click it and open with notepad.
Ma'am, can you repeat the step?
Yeah, sure. I think I repeated. Let me exit out and do it again. So are you up to here, right? Default website. So
Yes,
under
ma'am.
okay, good. So under the default website, you're going to explore it, and then IIS start, and then there is a file. You would see the bunch of files in there. So all you need to do. So once you have opened this page, we're going to do a little addition there. So there is a text which says title, right? So I would ask you to change this title by your name. This title. So change this title by your name, or whatever, the first name or few letters of first and last name, something like this. You make the changes and then you save it.
Ma'am, your voice is not audible.
So you type your name. I type CST110, whatever you like, what you like to type in. Okay. So then save and close it, and then we're going to test it. So you can take the screenshot of this page.
Ma'am, can you repeat the step after saving?
So you type in the loopback address in the web, go to the browser and type in loopback address 127.0.0.1. That's a loopback address. We use it to test different connectivity. So here we are using it to check the connectivity of our IIS server, whether it is reachable or not. So you simply type in and take the screenshot of this page if it. So you're done up to here. Now we're going to configure our domain server.
Ma'am, which file we were to edit?
So go to the domain name server, which file on domain name server, right? So you'll go to the domain name server from your tool menu. So you're going to create a new zone under the forwarder zone. Just follow along the on-screen instruction page. Are you guys up to here?
Yes, ma'am.
All of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
No,
great.
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
What happened?
Ma'am, I
Ma'am,
So
can't
just
find the file to which credit.
which file you couldn't find? It is a DNS configuration. So you just simply go to the tools in DNS. There's a DNS because you have installed it, right? So as you install a role, their function appears in the tool menu. So you go to the DNS, and from DNS, you go to the forwarder. So under the forwarder, you're going to create a new zone. You know, we have to set up our zone. What does our domain server has the directory? Is that okay?
ma'am, what do we have to type in browser after saving?
Oh, you mean IIS server?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
go. That's simple. You go to the server IIS Explorer and simply type in there the loopback address 127. That's a loopback address 127.0.0.1. So you would see there your name will appear here, and this is the testing page. That's a default IIS server page, Microsoft default IIS server page for server 2012 or server 8, IIS server 8. That's a version of the Windows Server web page. So simply type this loopback address. We will test it with our domain server name. Once we configured our domain server, then we type in our domain name and we can reach to our website as well. First, we make our IIS server available, then we will reach it to it through the DNS. Follow the default setting, primary zone, set up a primary zone for your DNS. So I set it up cst110.com. This is how I'm setting it up. So you can have your student ID, firstname.com. Got it up to here? Say next.
Ma'am, we have to put student ID or name here.
Your student ID, first three letters of your name, and .com. Student
Oh,
ID, first three letter of your name, .com. Or simply student ID if you don't want to make it longer. So then you can click finish. Go back to your web page and you need to now add a host name. Right click this web page address, what you have just domain name, server name, which you just have set it up. Right click it and add a new host. So I'm leaving the host name blank and I'm going to type in my IP address of IIS server. In my case, it is 192.168.2.29. So you have added the IP address of your IIS server. Hopefully, it can be reachable by the web page now. So from the three machines, you can reach to your DNS server by typing in their name. You can test it. Okay, you tested your IIS server by typing
Ma'am,
loopback address before. Now you're going to test it by typing your DNS server name, CST, in my case, CST110.com. Can reach to the same page what you had set it up under the IIS. So this page can be edited, can have something else, but that's not a part of this course. So people have their pictures and some messages, something like this.
ma'am, I,
We just leaving it to the default.
ma'am, my IS page only contains image. I can't add any name in that.
What did you say?
It just contains a simple picture. I can't edit anything. Or
Which
my
which content? So this is not. Don't worry about this editing. Just leave it to default. That you reach it to the by typing your domain name. So if you restart it, you would see this domain name appears everywhere wherever you configured your domain name server. So check it out. Okay, I think we are done pretty much with the configuration. So with DNS and IIS server, correct? Take the relevant screenshot which was mentioned under the instruction sheet and paste it in your lab report. Question if you have, you can ask at this point.
How to change the domain name, ma'am?
Well, I didn't get. Can you repeat your question?
How to change the domain of the ISS file?
Oh, you are on ISS folder. Okay, no problem. So you go to the view, you go to the tool, and there is a Internet Information Service IIS Manager. So you go to the manager, and default you can say no. And there is a step I told you under the site, default site, so you can explore it. So explore, and then you go to the IIS start. Don't just click it, open with Notepad. That's a text file. So this is the page where I changed the name. There's a little options which says title. There was a title before under those is a triangle bracket. So change this title with the name your student ID.
No, ma'am, I have changed that, but how to add the domain like you type CST110 and it opens this page?
This one, this is your student ID. I just
No,
have
ma'am, no, ma'am.
got it.
Like in the Internet Explorer, you typed www.cst110.com and
Yeah, that is from the DNS server setting, not from IIS, because I said under the DNS that is my domain name server name. So you go to their, well, I cannot repeat that step because I already configured it. Anyways, you go to the forwarder lookup zone and you start a new zone there. When you go to the new zone, then the page will come where does it ask you the domain, your web page server name. At that screen, well, I try to open it, primary zone, and then this is the zone name. So under zone name, you type in like your studentid.com, something like this. Okay, got it? And then
yes,
say
ma'am.
next. Okay, then say next, then it will appear in your Explorer bar when you get to the Explorer. Um, so don't forget to take the required screenshot, which is mentioned already on the instruction sheet. So I can refer that you have done up to here. So then you can type in your, instead of loopback address, you can see your web page name is here. This is the very first web page you have developed. I think so. And you have successfully developed your web page. Congratulations.
Ma'am, I have added the address in DNS, but when I type that in Internet Explorer, it says the page can't be displayed.
That is the IP address. You need don't add the host name, the IP address of your DNS servers. Check out the IP address. So this is in my case, go to the local server and check out your IP address. So this is the IP address. This IP address you're going to provide. You can leave the host name blank, but provide the IP address so other people can reach to you the DNS from other machines on this network.
Ma'am, in earlier step, there has to be like default setting, right? So,
Sorry, which one?
like that
Which step?
internet information, so IIS manager, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, what is the
Can
question?
you repeat for last time, ma'am?
Well, I repeated 5 times, I think
Oh,
so. If
I'm
I can
yeah,
count it,
yeah, ma'am. But
count them.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but
Someone can help Kapil. Someone can help Kapil. What he is missing out.
I did a DNS, but I'm stuck in that.
Let me get to the questions what I had it earlier in the beginning of this class. Some people have some questions and they want me to answer them. So let me see if I can help you further.
Yes, ma'am.
Please try to understand what I said. Some people said that your feedback, I don't agree or don't like it. Like, this is the first question, and I was enforced to answer it first. Mismatch student ID. That is a plagiarism quiz. I should give you 0 for this. You know why? The plagiarism is this is not your work. This is your student ID. If this is your student ID, it should not be mismatched with this one. 1 second. Let me double check it. 1 second, I'm just double checking. 4, 8. Okay. Hmm. 1 second, I'm just bear with me. I'm just double checking the.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes. I'm
Ma'am,
hearing all of your inputs. Yes. Go ahead.
I have a query in last lab 3.
Lab 3.
Yes, ma'am.
What it was?
Ma'am, when I fill the ping option in ma'am command, it shows unreachable.
Oh, check firewall setting. Actually, server should have firewall active. But we did unrecommended step, and because it requires one more instructions. I'll give you the instruction, but it'll make your task a complex. That's why I didn't give you that instruction. That's a PowerShell instruction.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
which automatically disable the firewall for some resources, but you can do it manually by going into the firewall setting of your virtual machine, server 1, server 2, and client machine, and disable, turn it off for a moment, and when you are pinging, right? Because
Yes.
if the firewall is enabled, it won't let the outer traffic to come in your network.
But ma'am, I had done that. It is not working yet.
Who's talking?
Kumar Pal.
Kumar Paul. Okay. Oh, you want me to look at your computer?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the problem exactly? Where you're pinging from? Which computer to computer client machine or from server?
Ma'am, server.
From server. Okay. So you
Yes.
configured them all IP addresses? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mm, okay, I got some more concern from my grading. Let me check it. Gosh, I include all the screenshot. Okay. Then Akash Singh. Okay, 1 second. I'll look at your computer once I resolve those issues. Okay, I'm looking at the individual questions I'm receiving in the chat box about their lab grades. So just bear with me. Let me fix it first, and then I'll come back to your today's questions. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
some people submitted some work late and they gave me the reason. Thank you for letting me know the reason. Well, please have some patience until I come back to that folder. When you miss a particular time frame, then you have to wait until I come back to that folder. You understand what I mean? So I got your query that you gave me the reason why you submitted the, whether it was a good reason or bad reason, whatever. Anyways, if I said I accept it, then you have to have a patience to come back. Let me come back to that folder and check it again. Send me the reason why did you miss it, okay? You were sick. Can you send me the reason why did you miss it? If you were sick, then I can arrange something. Otherwise, we cannot do the quiz. Rescheduling of quiz is difficult. Yes, someone is sick, that's an emergency condition. Yes, then I'll try to reschedule it. Otherwise, just move forward, move forward. Yes, if Jot, I told you that have some patience. You told me this reason 10 times, I think so, right? So you missed the date. When you miss the date, you have to have patience. Whenever I get a chance to go back that folder, right, there's it's not just like the things you missed it, and whenever you want to do it, you should be done it right away. It's not really possible. We have some scheduled times for each activity. If you had missed, you told me the reason. I'll figure it out. Okay. I resolved most of the questions which appears in my chat box. Um, and one more. Okay. The last is about the quiz yesterday week, right? So we completed our lab 3. That was the steps, the DNS configuration and IISL. That's all about the lab 3. When you can submit, I think Saturday night should be okay because most of the work was already done last week. last week. So the very last step was left, and I just didn't ask you to submit until we finish that step. Anyways, you can submit now. I got one more question about the quiz last time. The giving choice, if you don't agree, if you think you can access the you can access your, let me open that part.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am, when we have to submit lab 3?
I think I put the due dates on the folder, on the lab folder, assignment folder. Check it on D12. Saturday night. There was a last concern I'm addressing about quiz. So that choice, we don't like it. Well, that's your call. Anyways, if you find something which you don't agree upon, try to pick the choice which is most closer to the right one. Okay, so this is my suggestion. Maybe some typo could happen there. Heavy rainfall. Okay, enjoy it then. Where is the heavy rainfall? In India or here in Brampton? Where is the heavy? Someone said there's telling me the weather today in the chat box. So rain is the blessing, you know. It's all better than the snow. Don't complain. Well, complaints not really works, you know. Oh, on Saturday in India. Okay, that was the reason you didn't do the quiz. Internet connection was out because of the heavy rain. Well, I have no control on that rain, you know. Nobody else was not able to enter the class, not even from the cell phone. I think India provides very good cell phone services. This is what my I heard from my friends there. Well, I also originated from India. You know, my forefathers was from India. My father was from India. He studied in India, and uh, he was graduated from Usmania University in India. Well, I know something about it. This is not a country which I don't know anything about. You know, so so I have links there. My family members. Even we don't frequently chat because because of the many reasons. Yeah. Uh, there's a rain. Light does not come. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
I'll send you the electricity. Don't worry. Along with quiz. Can you do that?
And when is our quiz? It's on Saturday?
Some people are complaining about the rain. You know, this complaint I really cannot resolve. You know, I'm sorry about that. Well, my father visited there when he was alive. He was a big fan of Dilip Kumar, and he visited there to see his brother, my uncle. Actually, he's also not alive now. And to meet him, brother, and to watch the Dilip Kumar at the biggest screen. You know that. So
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes, go ahead.
Ma'am, can I show you now my screen? It is
Yeah,
still
one
showing
second.
unreachable.
One second. Let me address the last concern, which was about the quiz.
Okay, ma'am.
The attendance, right? So, which is most important on the top of everything. One last is concern I'm going to address about the quiz, and then we done, hopefully. Uh, Fusion in one of the question about S-config. Well, S-configs you work with the lab as well. You should remember that S-config was. I wish I can help you more. Yes, Kapil. That's why I was trying to tell you guys, please listen me so we can save some time. In some in some positive activity. So that was the last question I gave you guys. Not this one, right? No, not this one. Sorry, I opened the wrong one. Uh, not this one. Not this one. Wait a minute. Uh, Wait, the question was actually, I think this one, right? S-config. So there was a little typo, sconfig.cmd. So I don't think so. Can you reach to the configuration window of server core by MMC? Can you configure your server core using MMC? Can you show me there? If you can configure MMC using the MMC, can you configure your server core? I don't think so. No, none of those were available on on server core. That's available under our server GUI tools. MMC is a GUI tool. MMC is a GUI tool, right? Not a server core tool. So the tool for server is sconfig. There are some other tools as well, but it's not listed here.
But ma'am, sconfig.com was written there.
Try sconfig on your server core.
No, ma'am, actually in the quiz, the options were sconfig.com. That
Yeah,
say
but
that first that
yeah, MMC is a graphical user interface. It cannot be reached by core. It is available in server manager where you have other graphical tools. MMC, Microsoft Management Console. That's a graphical tool, and we cannot use graphical tool on core. It can be run on the server version, the version you were working, like server 3 or something like this, or server 2s from the command prompt. But this is the MMC. Those are the MMCs.
but
MMCs.
ma'am, so this means that in the quiz for that question, no option was correct.
So no options was correct. So okay, I'll delete that question from your question. Okay,
Yeah.
would it be fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll delete that question. If you don't agree with the options, okay? I don't like to argue further. Let's move on to the attendance. Okay, respond please if when you hear your name. If you could not speak up, you can type your response in the chat box. You have to respond when I'm calling in your name. Whether you are here or you are not here, I cannot verify until you respond me. You want me to mark everyone present today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me go over quickly, right? Just respond, try to respond quickly, okay? Amandeep Kaur,
Present, ma'am.
Amanveer Kaur, Arjun,
Present, ma'am.
Amanveer Singh present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Arshdeep Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Gurinder Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Gurleen Kaur, Gurmanjot Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Harmeet Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Jaspal Singh, Jitanpreet Kaur.
Present, ma'am. Jatanpreet Kaur present, ma'am.
Okay, Jitanpreet Singh, Jitanpreet Singh, Jobanpreet Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Karanbir Singh,
Present,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
Jovenpreet Singh present.
who?
Jovenpreet Singh.
Okay, good. Karanbir Singh,
Present,
Kulvinder Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Lovepreet Kaur,
Present, ma'am. Lapit Kaur.
Lovepreet Singh, Lovepreet Singh, Manisha,
Present, ma'am.
Manjot Kaur,
Present, ma'am.
Manjot Kaur number 2,
Present, ma'am.
Mahakdeep Kaur.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. Let me get to the other page. Muskan,
Present, ma'am.
Neha,
Present, ma'am.
Parminder Kaur, Prinkle Jot Singh,
present, ma'am.
Prinkle Jot Singh, Rajvinder Singh.
Present, ma'am. Twinkle Joe Singh.
Rajendra Singh present, ma'am.
Okay.